Welcome to this week's episode of Let's Chat with Derick. I am your host, Derick Fage, and if you're from Ottawa, you've moved to Ottawa, you know the wonderful work that the Ottawa Regional Cancer Foundation has been doing for years here in our community. And of course, many challenges if you're going through treatment for cancer for, not only the patient, but families. But imagine what that is like as we go through this incredible, unprecedented times during this pandemic. I am joined by the CEO and president of the Ottawa Regional Cancer Foundation, Michael Maidment. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Michael, let's first of all talk about your role as CEO and president, and I know this is something that you take such great pride in. As a matter of fact, this is quite a recent role for you as well. So tell me a little bit about, how the opportunity came about and what your role is at the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in the charitable sector in Ottawa now for about 15 years, and I think that's long enough. I use the expression sometimes with friends and family that I've become addicted to the impact, and that's one of the amazing things working in the nonprofit sector, is that you get to play that role. You get to support people and help people, and hopefully have an impact on the community. And it's something I think I learned as a kid, growing up in Newfoundland, all about community and giving back. And I certainly watched my parents and especially my grandparents, do everything to, cook meals for firefighters who are fighting a forest fire, to taking care of somebody, a neighbor at the hospital, or someone who's lost a loved one. That's kind of the community I grew up in. And now, all these years later, living here on the mainland, as we call it, in
Yeah.
Ottawa, which is now home, that's certainly part of it. So, love being able to help people and to hopefully give back to community.
Well, that word impact is so important, Michael. Let's talk about the impact and the role the foundation has had on patients and family and why the foundation is so incredibly important to people going through that journey.
Well, our focus is singular, and it's cancer. And, we know that cancer affects so many people in our community. One in two of us in our lifetime, according to the stats, will be affected by cancer. So, it's hard to believe when you step back and you think about it, right? You and I, Derek, one
Yeah.
of us will likely be impacted in our lifetime. And we see it around us, right? We see it with family. We see it with friends, we see it with people in the community. And so our singular focus is cancer. And where we're really focused is on finding solutions and treatments to cancer. So we're really focused as a foundation on funding research and clinical trials. And we're fortunate, I think, as a community to have world class research happening right here in the city of Ottawa. Our great partners at the Ottawa Hospital. I mean, the Research Institute here at the Ottawa Hospital is bar none one of the best in the world. And so that's our focus is cancer. We're really focused on finding those treatments, funding that research. And then the third part of which we do is we offer supportive cancer care, which takes the form of coaching. And when you receive
Right.
a cancer diagnosis, I mean, it's a terrible diagnosis. And it's confusing. What do I do for treatment? What questions do I ask my doctor? What do I do first? What do I do second? So many thoughts about how to beat the disease. How do I pay my mortgage, while I'm doing this? So many questions. And so we have certified cancer coaches, which are available to either patients or their families to help support them through the diagnosis and kind of put them in the driver's seat, put them in control, equip them with information, so they can have a fighting chance at beating this disease.
Yeah, Michael, can you paint the picture a little more for us? Because I know you have private one-on-one coaching. There's also group coaching available to people. Yeah, let us know what cancer coaching looks like, and especially during this time. Obviously, these times are unprecedented for everybody.
Yeah, so it would typically take the form of a one-on-one coaching. And there are a number of hours that are available free of charge to an individual who calls us, and need some support. What we're seeing though during the pandemic is that we're really being flexible with our solution, and we moved online, of course, into a virtual space, which has been really great for I think a couple of different reasons. One is that it helps us to reach, all of Eastern Ontario, and where it would have been harder before for somebody to travel maybe an hour or 2 hours coming into the city to do that appointment. We're now doing that in a virtual space. The other thing that we've heard from cancer patients that they really love during the pandemic, and because we've moved onto this virtual platform, is they don't have to get up and come down to us for this coaching appointment. We can do it virtually,
Right.
and which is really great because if you can imagine going through, chemotherapy or recently having surgery or just getting through the treatments, I think the last thing that you want to do is to get dressed and travel into the city for another appointment. And so this makes it really, really flexible. And it also allows us really to be flexible in meeting the needs of individuals. Maybe it's not a one-on-one coaching, maybe it's just a phone call, a
Right.
quick phone call with some questions, or using that virtual platform. So it's been really great discovery for us. And I think one that will, we're all kind of wondering what will stick around after the pandemic. We think the flexibility of an online platform is definitely going to help us in the future.
Michael, what are members of your team and maybe even including yourself hearing from patients? Because there's a lot of media talk of course, hospitals, the healthcare system being overwhelmed, and some treatments, for instance, being bumped. Are patients as having anxiety over it? Are you hearing that some of the treatments aren't happening because of the situation that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, I think a lot of things are being delayed, and that's the great risk, with cases increasing and capacity in hospitals and ICUs increasing, and that even more surgeries are going to be canceled to make space and capacity for COVID-19. We're actually hearing oncologists use terms such as stage migration, which was new to me when I heard it for the first time. But they're actually seeing when they are diagnosing cases of cancer, in some cases, it's more severe than it would have been in normal times because some of the treatments or some of the screening has not been available. Maybe somebody has stayed away from the hospital because they're concerned about COVID, and so they haven't seen their physician. And so we're actually hearing that term crop up now, stage migration, which is concerning. And cancer in our community affects about 8,000 people every single year. And so, we want to lower that number and not increase it. So I think the message is, from physicians is, if you have concerns, talk to your physician, see that physician, go through with the treatment. Don't stay away because of the pandemic. I think we heard in the first wave that, our emergency rooms were empty because so many people stayed away. But if you have a concern, go and see your doctor, investigate it, do the cancer screening, because I think the last thing that we want is for the cancer to become more severe during the pandemic, which is going to be harder to treat in the end.
Yeah, and when it comes to cancer and the journey people go through and the treatments and so forth, Michael, we've concentrated a lot on patients, but families are affected too. And I know that's a big part of cancer coaching at the foundation. So maybe tell us a little bit about, how the foundation helps not only patients but families as well.
Yeah, the coaching program, is mainly focused on individuals receiving that diagnosis, but it certainly supports their families as well. One of the great programs that we're about to launch right now helps kids whose parents are affected by cancer. Children are impacted as well when mom or dad become diagnosed with cancer, and so they have a lot of questions. And so one of the great resources we have are these group programs that we offer throughout the year, which bring these kids together and help to answer their questions about cancer. So. We know that when you receive a cancer diagnosis, you're going to rely on your family. I mean, that's the first thing that you do. But they need support too. So yeah, we're looking at the individual, not just the person with the diagnosis, but their whole family, their children, to support them all, because if we do that, we think we'll have a better outcome.
The foundation relies on volunteers, and I know that a lot of volunteer opportunities out there from, the work that we've done at Rogers, just visiting nonprofit organizations and of course charities. That volunteer opportunity has changed dramatically. So, what does the volunteer opportunity look like at the foundation at this moment?
Yeah, right now we've closed the center, and so we're not really doing anything right now from a volunteer point of view, which we would normally do, of course, running all these various programs that we offer to patients. But yeah, that unfortunately has all ended right now, and the entire team has been working from home for the last several months, staying out of the center and keeping safe. So that part of it has changed. Another big part of it is, raising the funds to support the programs, to pay for the programs that we offer, the coaching, and to help fund the research. And so there's a big volunteer component behind our fundraising as well, and raising those funds for the community. That certainly changed as well. This term pivot, which we've used way too much, and I think virtual, everything has moved into a virtual environment. Just us this morning, we would probably be, meeting in person and speaking in
Yeah.
person, but, instead we're doing it through technology. So it's really had a big impact on volunteers during the pandemic.
Let's talk. You mentioned donations. So, how about the impact of donations to the foundation? Have you seen a decline in donations throughout the pandemic?
Yeah, there's actually unfortunately been a very sharp decline. And, many of the donations come through events. We hold a breakfast every year, for example. That breakfast was successful this year, and moved into a virtual environment. But, one of the hallmark events for us is Fight for the Cure. Which takes place, and so we have individuals who fundraise and train for a boxing match every year. But of course, the gyms in which they would train are closed, and certainly the venues in which we would bring, hundreds of people together for a fun evening to raise funds to fight cancer. Those are all closed too, and so I think we've had 80 plus events since the pandemic began in March get canceled, which has had a pretty
Wow.
dramatic impact.
Yeah,
There's
that's a
no
big
hiding it.
number. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's a lot of revenue, and unfortunately, the impact of that has been, on the research and the clinical trials that we're funding right now. Because when that revenue declines, of course, we can't make the grants that we would like to make. And we talked earlier about how many more people are going to be diagnosed with cancer. And, unfortunately, some of those cancers are going to be more severe. Well, I would say it's more important than ever for us to fund research and clinical trials, because, as the numbers add up after the pandemic ends, and we begin to get back to a more normal cycle when it comes to cancer research and treatment, we're going to have to catch up with what could be a pretty large queue of people needing support in the community.
And you have been innovative. I mean, you have campaigns that you've been running. Can you give us some examples of some of the campaigns that you've been doing since the pandemic began?
Yeah, we've done a lot of the traditional things and move things online, such as the breakfast, which is really successful to be able to do online. But we've launched a Catch the Ace lottery, and which has been really successful. I mentioned earlier I'm from Newfoundland, and Catch the Ace is certainly a pretty big thing in Newfoundland and Atlantic Canada, and it's made its way here. And a lot of organizations have been using lotteries and these types of tactics to try and make up some of the shortfall. And that's one that we've been using, creating some excitement. It's certainly a lot of fun and something that we can do safely from home, and a way that we can recover some of that lost revenue.
Are there still partnership opportunities available? Sort of those third party events that people can do virtually, perhaps get their friends or business colleagues together. Are those opportunities still there?
Yeah, absolutely. And as the pandemic, I think to be honest, has gone on much longer than any of us thought. I remember back in the spring holding on to my Blues Fest tickets and thinking, it's going to happen. Blues Fest is going to happen. It hasn't been canceled. And here we are 10 months on. So we're definitely continuing to explore these third party events. And we've had a lot of really interesting things. A real estate agent recently reached out to us and said, look, I want to support you with every home that I sell because, we really recognize that the real estate market has done really well. And this agent in particular has done really well. So she's getting ready to launch, a really great campaign with us that every time that their agents sell a home, they're going to make a donation to the Regional Cancer Foundation, which is going to impact somebody's life. So, yeah, some still lots of opportunities for third party events to take place, and especially in the virtual space, things that we can do safely, or things like real estate transactions, which are still happening during the pandemic.
Michael, a great positive that we've heard over the years now is that word cancer, but also the word survivor being attached to that cancer survivors. And I think that goes to show that the research and the money that people have donated to the foundation have made an incredible difference. Maybe just talk a little bit about those. The research that's been done and how far that we've come in just the last decade even.
Yeah, it's been incredible, and we have world class research right here in Ottawa, and I've had the opportunity since beginning with the foundation to meet a couple of the researchers, and Dr. Rebecca Auer and Dr. John Bell come to mind, and what the Research Institute is doing here in Ottawa. Around something, for example, called oncolytic viruses, where researchers have trained viruses to attack the cancer. And that's having really amazing results. And we are starting to think about, cancer was always, the word cancer was life sentence. That was it,
Yeah.
point final. But now, we're starting to think that it isn't. We're making great progress in certain types of cancer, and some of these pioneering treatments, such as the oncolytic virus, that research is happening right here in the city, and that's why we're so excited to be part of that research, funding those research and those clinical trials that are happening here because they're making a real difference in people's lives and changing what used to be a certain death sentence. Into something, as you mentioned, surviving. We can now talk about surviving this terrible disease.
You recently as well made a $1 million grant to the Ottawa Hospital. Obviously, that is part of the research and the clinical trials. But that kind of money, what does that mean to the Ottawa Hospital and those working on trying to find better treatments, trying to find cures? That's a big amount of money, right?
Yeah, and it was pretty exciting to do it, just having joined the organization, 2 months previous. So that was pretty exciting to go to the hospital and deliver a check, for $1 million. But that's the work that the foundation has done in partnership with the hospital, for nearly 25 years now, and it makes a big impact on research and we're making some real progress. So, every new dollar now that we put into this research is making great strides. I mean, I think we're in a heyday for science and research. I mean, think of, what we're going through with the pandemic right now and how quickly the world has created vaccines for a virus that was, essentially identified about a year ago. And
Yeah.
now we already have, vaccines into the arms of individuals. That's amazing, amazing speed and probably not so different. I mean, I know one of the companies that has created a vaccine for COVID-19. Their core business is cancer therapy. So talking about oncolytic virus and training viruses to attack cancer. Science and technology is really rapidly growing, and to be able to have that right here in Ottawa, we're not talking about Toronto or Vancouver or somewhere in Europe or the United States. We have that world class work happening right here. So we felt very fortunate to have the support in the community to be able to step forward just before Christmas with a $1 million check for the Ottawa Hospital.
Yeah, how are those decisions made, Michael? I know you have a team there. The foundation looks. I imagine you work with people obviously in the field of clinical trials and research, and of course you have the cancer coaching. So you're listening to those professionals to find out where the money would be best served. It would be my understanding.
Yeah, and we're a part of, the funding. I mean, we don't fund the entire solution, of course, and so
Right.
we work really closely with the Ottawa Hospital and in a series of discussions to say, what are the priorities that you're focusing on, and how do those priorities, align with us under the issue of cancer? And so how can we work with you in partnership to amplify, the work that you're already doing? And so we were talking for a period of weeks, and the hospital had a series of priorities already underway, and so we made that decision together that we would fund those priorities, and we would combine our efforts to make them successful.
Michael, has the foundation been forced to conduct layoffs because of the pandemic? We see businesses and nonprofit organizations, even charities, having such a difficult time. Have you been put in that position as well?
No, no, fortunately we haven't. I mean, we've made some changes, right around the time of the pandemic beginning, but really, I think the impact it has had an impact certainly on revenue, and
Hmm.
we've scrutinized every expenditure, and just because the revenue isn't there, and what's really important to us is that we want to keep funding research. We want to make sure that that's possible. So, we've made a number of decisions. We've potentially not replaced people who have left recently, those kinds of things where we can generate some savings internally and funnel more of that money into research and clinical trials, which has been good. And we've been able to have some other practical savings from working from home. We can you know turn the heat down at the building. We can clean it less frequently. We can do some of those things to try and save money as much as possible. But for us, I think the ultimate priority is that we keep funding clinical trials research and we keep offering coaching. And so some of these cost controls have helped us to do that.
Michael, I'd like to take a moment to talk about a friend of mine, a friend of yours, a friend of the community, and his recent diagnosis with cancer. And it came as a shock to everybody. And of course, he's just been so eloquent as he always is in discussing it, and just reaching out to the community to thank them for their support. But Rabbi Balka, he's done so much for this community and the foundation as well. And I know he's close to your heart, and maybe just a few words on Rabbi Balka and what he's meant to the community and the foundation.
I posted to social media when that terrible news, reached me, and he was the first individual to congratulate me when I started at the foundation. And I this email popped up, and as it often does with Rabbi Bulk, it started, dearest Michael, how are you? And it was always he was just so selfless as an individual. I mean, it's always about you and never about him. And he's one of the kindest individuals that I've ever had the pleasure to meet. And I think we're all, as a community, heartbroken, for this diagnosis. And it sounds like a serious diagnosis, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think he is as tough as he is kind, and I know that he has incredible support in the community. And I'm joining with everybody else in the community and praying for him, during this very difficult time. He's been an incredible ambassador of, I think, every cause. I mean, I
Yeah,
was about
I
to say he's been an
agree.
incredible
Yeah.
ambassador, for the Cancer Foundation, and he has. I mean, I pass by, when I am in the office, I pass by a wonderful picture of Rabbi Balka, and it's him shaving his hair actually, is the photo, to raise money for the foundation, and to support the community with cancer. And he's an incredible individual, an incredible community builder, and I think someone, that we care deeply about. And so we're sending him, I think, all of our strength, and willing him to get through this.
Yeah, and you said it so well, Michael. I'm not sure there's an organization or a cause that he hasn't supported over the years. I mean, the amount of energy that man has is just absolutely unbelievable. Michael, let's talk about how people can ways to give, how people can continue to help the foundation during these times.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's money right now. We would typically say, well, you could volunteer, you could do different things to support us, but I think really right now the challenge is getting the funds together, so that we can continue to fund, the coaching that we're doing in the community, and continue to fund the important research, especially as we get to the end of the pandemic, and then I think we start to discover, all that's happened, when it comes to cancer in our community. I think potentially that's, maybe the next big crisis, the next big challenge for our community will be supporting everyone, with cancer, and what's happened to cancer during the pandemic, as the pandemic has taxed, our healthcare systems. But people can get involved. They can visit our website, ottawacancer.ca. They can find the information. First of all, if they've received that diagnosis and they need information and help, they can get help with that. But they can support us financially, and know that when they give to us as a foundation, they're supporting, local research, local clinical trials, local work right here in their community for some of these 8,000 people who we expect will be diagnosed this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that cancer coaching that is so important to patients and families. Michael, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Really appreciate it. And I would encourage viewers as well, if you're doing a trivia night with friends and family, think of the Ottawa Regional Cancer Foundation as perhaps, some where some money you can put into a great cause that, as you gave an example of, that just helps so many people in our community. Michael, again, thanks so much for spending time with us, and I wish you and your family all the best. Stay healthy and stay safe.
Thanks, Derek. Take care.